Greetings, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. We do a couple of webinars a month, and most of them are about deep dives into individual features, like we're doing resource scheduler administration next week. Sometimes they're overviews of ClubExpress for those people that are new to ClubExpress or considering ClubExpress as an association management solution. And today we're going to do an update to show you some of the features that have either been introduced in version 9.3 or enhanced. And so Dan is going to do the demonstration, and let's take care of a little bit of housekeeping first. All of the phones and microphones are muted, so if you have questions, you should enter them into the chat window. At the end of the demonstration, we will revisit the chat questions to see if there was anything that wasn't already covered. And this is particularly useful for those people that are viewing a recording of this webinar. And speaking of recordings, all of our webinars and tutorials are available. If you go to clubexpress.com and click on Cool Stuff, and then click on the Webinars tab, you'll see the schedule of upcoming webinars, and you'll also see all the recordings. Similarly, on the Video Tutorials tab, just above the Webinars tab, you have a listing of all of the recent tutorials. Now, all of our videos are actually hosted on YouTube. So when viewing a video on YouTube, if you click on clubexpress.com, you can click on the subscribe and then optionally the notify icon. So this way you can be notified of new content whenever it's posted. And finally, if you're using ClubExpress, and particularly if ClubExpress is doing very well for you, we'd appreciate it if you would go to clubexpress.com/reviews and click on one of these review sites and leave a review of ClubExpress so other people can know how it's working for your organization and take advantage of your experience. Today's demo, Dan is going to give you an overview of the new features and functionalities in ClubExpress 9.3.
Welcome, everyone. I know these are, difficult times for everyone, both personally and professionally, and, whatever your passion happens to be, or the club or the association that you're belonging to. Here, we're in the middle of our 8th week, I think, of working from home. We closed the office on March the 13th. The way things are going, it could be many more months before, things are back to normal. But I, hope everyone and, you and your families and friends and professional associates are all staying safe and healthy. So what we're going to cover today is on the overview screen. We'll look first at event calendar enhancements, credit card refunds, gift memberships, first login and tell a friend. And then there's a few other enhancements that we'd like to communicate as well. So let's start with the event calendar and the first of 3 features, which is the waitlist. Now, the waitlist is a feature that a lot of people have been asking for a while, and it turned out to be, enormously complex to implement it, and we had to implement it a certain way for reasons that I'll explain in a moment. But the way that you enable the waitlist is to go to the registrations and fees panel. And so let's start out. Here we are on the Northwest Balloon Club, which we use for a lot of our demos, and we have an event defined today, which is the Wednesday night game night. And you'll notice when I come to it, this event has 3 people and the capacity is filled. And so there is a button there that says add me to the waitlist. And that replaces the register now button. The way you define the waitlist is by going to the registration, fees, and attendance tracking screen. And I can click this icon here, or I can click the fees option up here. Now, first of all, registration needs to be required in order for you to have a waitlist, either required or required by a close date. And then secondly, you need to define a capacity. So in this case, we have the capacity of the event is limited. We set it to 3 people, and the other 2 settings don't matter. Once this and this, once these 2 items are configured, you'll see an option here that allows you to define the waitlist. And it's yes or no whether you want to have a wait list. You can define the maximum number of people on the wait list. And then you can also define the number of hours that a waitlisted person is limited to register for an event. And I'll explain what that is in a moment. Now, this setting is also on the event options screen. So, you can set it to be any default number of hours so you don't have to change it each time. And once you've done those settings, we end up, when the event is full, with a button here that says add me to the waitlist. Now, I can click that button and I just get a pop-up confirmation. And then when I click add me to the waitlist, it now says you've been added to the waitlist. And you'll notice that the button changes to say remove me from the waitlist. And that button is highlighted. So whenever I come, when I'm logged in, and as you'll notice, I'm logged in here as Martin Smith, whenever I come to this event, it'll tell me that I'm on the wait list, and if I want to, perhaps I don't need to be anymore, I've made other arrangements for that day, I can remove myself from the wait list. If space opens up, we don't fill that space with the first person on the wait list automatically. We don't do that for a number of reasons. The way that you look at the wait list is by going to the admin tools, and when a wait list is defined, there's a new second icon here in the admin tools for this event. And if I click on this icon, it'll take me to the waitlist screen. Now the waitlist screen, in this case, will show that Martin Smith is waitlisted. And, you know, if you have a very large event, say there's 500 people and there's 50 people on the waitlist, well, we have a search panel here and you can filter in different ways, filter by last name or a date range when people added themselves to the waitlist. If somebody calls up and says, please add me to the waitlist, I'm not very tech savvy, well, an admin can certainly add a member or a non-member to the waitlist. And you can also empty out the waitlist. And here you can jump to a member's profile or you can remove them from the waitlist. Now, at this point, there is no space on the event. So there's an icon that you don't see here, which is the one that says, send an invitation to this person. Now, when somebody adds themselves to the waitlist, let me just go back to the slideshow for a moment. When somebody adds themselves to the waitlist, there are multiple confirmation emails that will get sent out. First of all, the person who added themselves gets a confirmation email. And secondly, the event coordinator or coordinators get a confirmation email as well. Now, when space becomes available, people on the waitlist are not registered automatically. An admin has the option of notifying one person that there's space available, or there's a button where they could notify everyone. So, and again, we can't see that button, but it would appear up here. And basically, the philosophy is that an admin gets to choose who should be notified that there's space available. And so when they click that icon, the one that we can't see here, that person will get an email with a special link. Now, one of the things that you'll notice is that even if space becomes available, when there's a waitlist defined, the capacity doesn't change. So if I go back to this event and it says that the capacity is 3, if one of those people cancels, actually, why don't we try that? Let's see what happens. So here are all of those people. And what I'm going to do is cancel Jane Doe's reservation. And we click yes. And we click no on the email notification. So the registration was canceled, and we can see here that it's canceled. If we go back to the event, you'll notice that it still says that the capacity is 3. It says there's an available slot, but you can't register. The registration button doesn't appear. What happens now, these were the 3 that we saw before. Here are the ones that we see now. I can remove all waitlist entries. I can notify all user, or I could notify the next user. I don't even have to think about it. But if I have multiple people on the waitlist here, this is the new icon I was telling you about. It's the email icon to allow you to notify a user. So I don't have to notify the next available person. Assume there are multiple people on the waitlist. This list will be sorted in date time with the earliest person who added themselves to the waitlist at the top. The admin has the option of sending, one of those people an email, and that email has a special link in it that that person can use to jump straight into the registration wizard. Because if they jump to the event, the register me button is not there. The reason it's not there is that we don't want somebody else jumping in and saying, oh, there's a slot available, let me register for this event, and getting ahead of the people in the waitlist. So if I don't want to notify the next person, I can really click this icon for anyone. So that's an option that's available to clubs. The second option you have is this button. Think of it as the free-for-all button, first come, first served. Let's say that the event has capacity of 100, and let's say a family of 4 cancels out, and so now there are 4 slots. You could actually click this button and everybody on the wait list would get an email saying some space has opened up, first come, first served basis. Click this link, and the link is valid for the amount of time that we specified. In this case, it was 1 hour. You could set it for 4 hours, for example, but the link is valid, and those people that see the email and register will get one of the available slots. If somebody doesn't, they might still get a message to say, sorry, the event is full again. So that's basically the options that you have, either to notify one person, and it's not necessarily the next person on the list, that's really up to an admin, or everyone. Now, one of the reasons we couldn't do it automatically, first of all, we didn't want people to be registering, picking all of the details, paying their money, and then finding out that they were really on a wait list. First of all, that ticks off a lot of people. And secondly, it means the clubs, if people don't get a space, the club would have to offer refunds. Secondly, when you're dealing with a multi-activity event, how do you judge when the event becomes available? You might have a 3-day conference, and the activity that becomes available is an optional winery tour for spouses that's not the event itself. And you can't basically say that there's now space at this conference if the only thing that's opened up is an optional winery tour. And so for a multi-activity event, it's a much more complex problem. And so we decided to implement it where people put themselves on a wait list, but they don't register. And as soon as space opens up, then they can register, decide what options, if it's a multi-activity event or if it's a single activity event, then they decide what their registration type is, pay the appropriate fee at that point, and then they're actually registered.
Dan, there's a question that says if a wait list is emptied and there is still space in the event, does the register now button reappear?
Yes, if there is space available, even if there's a wait list and there's nobody on the wait list, the register button will reappear. Okay, so the second option, this one only applies to a fairly small number of organizations. It's sharing events between multi-tier clubs. We have a number of people using ClubExpress where they run in a multi-tier hierarchy. So this is not the model where you just have one website and you have regions, districts, and chapters under that website, because there's only one calendar. Here, what we're talking about is the model where you have independent chapters that have their own member types, their own website. People join at the lower level, so you can see that over here. But there is also a top level, call it a district, for example, a top level organization that has a virtual database comprising the databases of all of the chapters. It has its own website. And so we've added a feature now where you can define an event at the chapter level and check an option, and that event will display on the calendar at the district level. So for example, if a chapter is bringing in a guest speaker, perhaps the local congressman, you might want to let all of the other chapters and the district know that this is happening so that they can register for the event as well. Similarly, at the top level, you can define an event, let's say it's a district conference, and you can check an option that says that that event should appear on the calendars for all of the lower level chapters. And when you click on the event, it'll take you up to the top level website so that you can register for that event. And if you're a member of the chapter, you can log in at the top level as well and register for the event as a member. So it's really two options that, each of which works either up or down, the two different directions. The third thing that we've enhanced or changed is partial payments. We originally announced this in version 9.2, but we've made a couple of further enhancements to it. You can now specify an initial down payment for the event so that when people register, you can say that as part of this registration, you need to pay, let's say it's a ski trip, you need to pay $250 right now. And that indicates your interest in the event. The second thing is that admins can now edit the amount being paid. So for example, if someone comes along and says, look, my next payment is $1,200, I can only pay $1,000 right now, an admin can go in and edit the amount being paid, say, call it $1,000, and then the difference from the scheduled payment becomes an additional scheduled payment with the same date as the original, and it's still sitting there. And then, the expectation is that the person would pay it next week when they get their paycheck or whatever. Users cannot enter the amount being paid, because if we allowed that, users would just say, well, I'm not going to pay $1,000, I'll pay $400. And the clubs would not be getting the payments on the schedule that they require, especially if they have to pay vendors or things like that. And the other thing is we've fine-tuned the reminder emails. Reminder emails are now sent out 3 days before a payment is due to everyone that has a payment due, and then every day thereafter until that payment has been made. Even if you pay a lower amount, you're going to get a reminder every day that you still owe a certain amount of money by that schedule. There's a couple of ski clubs that are on the call, and they're the main ones that use this partial payments feature. Hopefully these enhancements will make this feature even more usable for you. Okay, so credit card refunds. Obviously, with the coronavirus pandemic, you're all finding that you have to cancel events, including some events that have been in planning for many months and for which people have already been registering. I belong to a car club here in Chicago, and we've already canceled 4 events, February, March, April, and May. And, we're crossing our fingers that we'll be able to do something this year. The issue has always been, especially for those clubs and associations that are using the built-in merchant account, we never supported refunds in the past, because if somebody was able to do a refund, the merchant processor would go into our bank account, take the money, and then restore it to the cardholder. And then we would have to go to the club or the association's bank account and withdraw the money from them in order to square things up. And what if it turns out that the bank account doesn't have enough money in it, or the bank account has been closed? And so for those reasons, we didn't support it in the past, but obviously now there's a big need to do that. And so we've implemented this feature to protect all of us against the possibility of fraud. So the way it works is that you'll calculate the amount of money that you need to refund. So let's say you have an event that cost $50 and you had 20 people who registered for that event and paid by credit card. And so there's $1,000 there. If we do the math, there's $1,000 that needs to be refunded by credit card. If it's a cash payment or a check payment, well, you'll have to do the refund, by check. So what you'll do is you'll calculate the amount of money that needs to be refunded, and you'll go to an online form on the Open Credits page. So let's have a look at that. We'll go to the Control Panel, the Money tab, and here is the Open Credits page. And, this page is pretty much the same as it always has. We've changed the appearance of the icons here. By the way, just as an aside, this sort of appearance for buttons, you're going to see this starting to appear more and more throughout the system, where we're really trying to update the look and feel of ClubExpress throughout. There's a new button here, which is the Refund Account button. And if you click that button, you'll see a pop-up dialog that allows you to specify an amount of money. So I could specify $1,000, and I could add that to an account. That sends an email to an administrator here in our office. We will then run an ACH to withdraw that money from your primary bank account. And the ACH process takes 2 business days. So the ability to run refunds will be put on hold until we've actually received that money. Generally, it'll be 3 business days just to make sure it's arrived, especially for a very large sum. We have a club that saw this feature and actually already requested $5,000 that they need to refund for, 1 or more events. So once we've received the money, we go to our administrator website in the office, and we essentially approve that refund. And once we approve that refund, then you'll see that your refund account has $1,000 in it. And then there'll be a new icon that appears here on the right-hand side, only for those credits that were initially paid by credit card. We're using the Open Credits page is because our assumption is that you're canceling an event. And so if you cancel an event, we're going to create credits for everybody who actually paid for the event or part of the event in the amount that they paid for. And so those credits will now appear on this screen, and then there'll be a new icon here. And again, I can't show it to you because this is a demo club, but there'll be a new icon that appears here that will allow you to basically say, let's credit this $20. Credit, there'll be a confirmation dialog, confirm, and you're done. Go to the next one, go to the next one. We have a credit that's being partially paid. This is the amount that would be refunded, not this amount. Now, I will also mention, and I know there'll be a couple of questions about this in a minute, I will also mention that we're in the process of making some further enhancements to this feature. We're going to allow you, for example, to adjust the amount being refunded. So if you have an event, for example, that costs $50, but you say up front that only 30 of that is refunded, that you'll be able to, on that little pop-up confirmation dialog, you'll be able to refund only $30 out of the 50, for example, and flag the rest as non-refundable. Similarly, if you want to refund everything except for a credit card processing fee of 3%, you'll have that option as well. Now, there's been a couple of questions about why we can't do refunds from multiple bank accounts or chapter bank accounts. And the problem there is you have to remember that in ClubExpress, one payment could encompass multiple transactions, and those funds could be distributed into one or more bank accounts. We have one club running on ClubExpress where every member sign up or renewal often gets distributed into 5 or 6 bank accounts. And so withdrawing the correct amounts of money from each bank account and keeping track of all that and maintaining separate accounts for each bank account, it's just not possible to do that. So right now, we have to withdraw that money from the primary bank account. And if there's any adjustments that need to be made for chapters, then those are things that you'll have to do internally within the club.
So Dan, one of the questions is when you're setting up a refund account, do you specify which bank account or which financial account that needs to come out of?
No, right now we specify it comes out automatically from the primary account. We don't have multiple refunds accounts. There's one refund account. And so if you could say that I want to credit this particular chapter for $1,000 worth of refunds, and then another admin comes along and says, well, we've had to cancel another event, so we want to do refunds of $500 from a different chapter. Well, that all goes into the same pot, and we keep track of that pot as we're going along. So as it says here, you can refund the credits, but we'll maintain a running tally up to the permitted amount. So the amount that you can refund will go down until it reaches zero or until it's replenished up to a higher amount.
The reason I ask is that one of the comments says that in their particular organization, their event funds are maintained in a separate account at a different bank from their primary operating funds.
These were issues that we discussed as we were mapping out this feature. The other thing, of course, is that there was some urgency in building this feature because of the COVID-19 situation. And so, yes, we could probably add some enhancements to it and ultimately maybe support multiple accounts, each linked to a specific bank account or chapter. But at least in the initial implementation, this is what we've done. We're working on a couple of smaller enhancements to get them done as quickly as possible. The other thing I should point out is that for those of you that have your own merchant account, where the funds do not go through us, it does work a little bit differently. In that situation, you can set up an account, but we don't obviously withdraw money from anywhere. And then you'll have the ability immediately to do the credit card refunds. You won't have to wait for 2 business days for us to retrieve the money first. One wrinkle on that to keep in mind, if you have your own merchant account, is that refunds cannot be done within the first 24 hours. And that has to do with how merchant accounts and merchant processors work. The funds actually need to settle before they can be refunded. And that can take up to 24 hours. Some merchant accounts are configured to settle at 5 o'clock in the afternoon or at 7 o'clock in the evening, or sometimes at midnight. So if it's 7 o'clock in the evening and someone registers for an event at 10 o'clock in the evening and then changes their mind, you can't refund that immediately. You have to wait 24 hours until after 7 p.m. the next day. And then once the funds have settled, then you can actually do the refund. Okay, let's keep going. Gift memberships. So gift memberships is actually a new module, and it allows people to buy a gift membership for someone else. And here's the way it works. Let's go to the control panel. And on the People tab, we have this new option down here. Let's scroll that up, called Gift Memberships. Now it has an admin side, obviously, here and here, and it has a user side. Let's have a quick look at the user side. When we click that, it's a very simple form. The gift recipient, we want to collect their first name, last name, email address, phone, and whether or not that's a mobile phone. Your information. So we specify the basic information here. Everything except relationship is required. And you can also flag the gift as being anonymous. Probably a lot of people won't use that, but you can use it if you want. And then you specify the gift amount. Now, because of the way this ties in with discount coupons behind the scenes, you have to predefine available amounts. So in this case, we have 2 or 3 different amounts that you can define, and then the gift giver specifies a personal message. Maybe it's a grandmother buying a gift membership in a mother's club for her daughter who just had a baby, and then you complete the purchase, and you'll be taken to the payment page in order to complete payment. Once payment has been completed, 3 emails go out. An email to the gift recipient that says, you've received a gift of a membership in the XYZ Club in the amount of here. From Grandmother Mary, here's the message. And here's a coupon code that you can use. And here is a link to take you to the website so that you can sign up for membership. And when you get to the payment page, you can use the coupon code. Now, the coupon may not cover the full membership. I mean, depending on which options you pick, which chapters you pick, additional charges, things like that. We don't know up front that an individual membership, let's say, is $40, but depending on which options, the bill that comes out at the end might be more than that. So, we don't really know what the final thing is. So the idea is that the gift is towards the cost of your membership in the organization. The second email that goes out is to the gift giver, just as a receipt that they gave a gift to that person. And of course, they'll also get a payment receipt email. And then the third email that goes out is to the membership coordinator for the club to say that a gift has been provided. Now let's go to the admin side of the module. And here we can see that there are 2 gifts that have been given. Here is the giver, here is the recipient. The status is open, which means it hasn't been used. In order to predefine the amounts, we go up here and you can administer the amounts and put them in whatever sequence you want. And then there's a report that shows you the gifts purchased by date range and their status. And if somebody calls up and says, look, I'm not very computer savvy, I'm a grandmother and my daughter just had a baby, can I buy a gift to your parents group? An administrator can go in and actually do that on behalf of somebody who might have called up. Okay, so just reviewing, you've got to define recommended gift amounts. Gifts can optionally be anonymous. The emails is sent to the gift recipient, to the purchaser, and to the membership director. All of those emails, by the way, can be customized. And the system tracks the gifts. And the gift purchaser is added to the club's database using a special mailing list category called gift purchaser, so that you are keeping track of who's actually provided gifts as well. First login. So there are a number of situations where you might want to force people to update their information when they log in the first time. So after a bulk load, let's say as a club, when you're just getting started with ClubExpress, we do the bulk load for you. But if you don't have complete information for all of your members, you might want them to sort of fill in the membership database. And especially if you have additional member data questions that you weren't collecting beforehand. So if you're a skiing club and you weren't previously collecting information on, I don't know, what brand of skis people like to use, whatever, you can force people to provide that information. And also you might want them to sign a joining agreement, which could be code of ethics for a professional association, or it could be a release or waiver agreement for a community association, a club like a ski club that's involved in potentially hazardous activities. So the way that we define that Let's again go back to the control panel. And the admin screen for the membership sign-up wizard is this pencil icon here. It used to be, I should mention, it used to be down in the setup screen, but it really is the admin for the wizard, so we moved it up here. When you click this icon, some of you will have seen this screen before, but instead of having 4 columns for the different configurations of member sign-up and member renewal, there's now a 5th column called First Login. And in order to enable that column, we have this box at the top here. So when I click Enable First Login, I now get these options here, and I can say, well, I want the member to, when they first log in, to update their contact information, their additional member data, and the joining agreement. And then you click Save, and now when anybody logs in the first time, after this has been enabled, they will be asked to go through those screens. Now, the user can break out of the wizard. If they click on a menu choice or their profile, they will break out of the wizard. They can do whatever they want. When they log out and then come back to the website again, they'll see the wizard again. And they will see the wizard every time until they've actually gone through and completed the wizard. And then we set a flag internally and we won't show them the first login wizard anymore. Let's move on. So Tell a Friend is a new option that allows a member to tell a friend about the website. And it's enabled on the website options screen. So if I go down to Control Panel and Website, scroll down to Website Options, there is this new option right here, which is Show the Tell a Friend link. If this option is enabled, then when a member goes to their profile dropdown, there'll be a new option down here that says Tell a Friend. And when I click that, I get a little pop-up, friend's first name, last name, email address, and message. Now, a couple of limitations. First of all, we do not add the friends information to your non-member database so that you can start blasting them with emails. That would be without their permission, so we don't do it. But we do keep track of those Tell a Friend requests, and there is actually a couple of reports in the system that allow you to keep track of those requests to see if any of those people actually came to the website as a result of that, Tell a Friend. So when we send them the email, there's a link to the website, but that link is especially encoded so that we can track the fact that they clicked on the link. The other thing to keep in mind is that a Tell a Friend request can only be sent once to each email address from each club. So if I do, Tell a Friend, and then one of my mates wants to tell the same friend, they'll get an email to say that friend's already been told, so to speak. The report that I mentioned is here under Website Reports, Website Traffic, Tell a Friend Referrals by Date, and Tell a Friend Successful Referrals. So that's keeping track of who's actually come to the website using that specially encoded link that we sent them. And by the way, the email, the Tell a Friend email can also be customized. So that's also available under Communications, System Emails, and it's also on this list of system emails right here. And, basically that's what Tell a Friend looks like. So a couple of other enhancements. In the News Articles module, we've updated the user interface, and I'll show it to you in a moment. You also have the ability with a news or article posting to show or hide the author's name. And there are also some sort options and then a minor tweak to how the date range option works. So let's have a quick look at that. We'll go to the members menu and we'll go to news and to the admin side of that module. So this is sort of the new look and feel with these buttons at the top. We don't have the sort of the bare bones buttons on the right anymore. This works better on mobile. It's more graphic. And the interesting thing is that you can hide the search panel. So if you do a search where you get a certain set of criteria, and now you've got a list of news or articles that you want to edit or work on, you can get the search panel out of the way, and now there's less scrolling that needs to be done. Or I can display the search panel, and there are the options again. The look and feel of the search panel has changed. It's a bit tighter, using a different font. Here are the sort options that we have, and each one of those can be sorted in ascending or descending order. And then the other option that we added if I click here, there's this new option here to show the author on the news story. So if you check that, then with that particular story, the author's name will be shown. We've made some major updates. These were deployed about 6 to 8 weeks ago. But for those of you that use forums intensively, and especially email-based forums, which are also known as list servers, we did some major updates to the appearance. The user interface is a lot tighter, especially on mobile devices. We've removed as much of the extraneous sort of text as we can, and tightened up the links that need to be there. And we've also made some significant improvements in the handling of message replies that come in by email. Because if you're using your email software, let's say it's Microsoft Outlook or Apple Mail or something like that, a lot of us have a standard configuration that when you hit reply, the message that you're replying to appears underneath your reply and indented a little bit. Well, the problem was that when that was sent back to a forum, the message that you were replying to would appear in the message. And then someone would reply to that. And then the whole thing would reply, and it would nest and nest and nest until it was all the way over on the right-hand side and you were barely seeing a couple of characters. And with all of those nested replies, it was just getting huge and unmanageable. So we really made a very major effort to clean up how we handle those message replies, basically removing them. If someone replies to a forum message by email and it comes back to us and we add that to the forum and then send it out to everyone, we're going to strip out the message that you're replying to so that we only see your actual reply. A couple of other things. The courseware and testing module is now called the e-learning module. Some of you will remember that we lowered the price of this one. It has a one-time additional fee. We lowered it down to $200 because it's a really lovely module if you want to do video-based training for your members who, of course, can't get together in actual classes. So we lowered the cost of that module. We also added a feature where you can archive one of the videos. The additional member data questions export now has a filter by member status. So let's have a quick look at that. We'll go to the control panel. Okay, so we go to additional member data. And some of you will recognize this button up here. This is the export answers button. If you're looking for an export that is the most comprehensive export of as much of the member data as we have in the database, along with all of the answers to all of the questions that you're posing, this is the export you want to run. And it has a new option here where you can filter by membership status. And this is one of those fancy drop-downs where you can check multiple options. So I can check all of those options and you'll see it now says 4 items checked. And I can check them all, or I can check none and just active. So it's really a lot more flexible now. If you want to do an export and you don't need all of your dropped or expired members from years and years ago, you can leave them out of the export. And that was an enhancement that a number of people had asked for, and we were able to squeeze that in. I love adding these little features. People ask for enhancements, and when a developer has a spare 2 or 3 hours, we say, okay, just add this because people have asked for it. And, it's a little thing that we can do. Quick link setup on the configure pop-up dialog. So for modules, custom web pages, and photo albums, we make it easy now for you to create quick links. So if I go to the website tab, you'll notice all of these modules here have a wrench icon, and the wrench icon allows you to configure this module or function. And there's a new option down here where you can create the quick link right here. This is for a module. If you, for example, have a custom page, let's look at custom pages. Same wrench icon exists here with custom pages. So for example, if you have a custom page which talks about the history of ballooning and you want to make a quick link to that page, you create it right here. Let's say you specify the word history and you click save. And now when anybody goes to your website, northwestballoons.org/history, you've got a nice, clean, short link, and it'll take them directly to that page. And it also works for photo albums as well. So custom pages, photo albums, and then any of these options here that have a wrench icon. Okay. And one more thing, and that's the multiple miscellaneous charges function, we redesigned that, and we also added the ability to do credits. So let's have a look at that one. It's on the Money tab, multiple miscellaneous charges and credits. Here is the new option to specify either a charge or credit. You specify the description, the fee, the financial account, QuickBooks if you're using it, and then you can specify a filter, and you'll see a list of people here over on the left, and I can check those and then click this arrow and they move over from the left to the right. They should actually, by the way, disappear on the left-hand side. That was a little bug we noticed yesterday that's being fixed right now. And then, of course, I can add another filter here, and I can add a couple of Joneses and move those over. I can move everyone over. I can move everyone back. So the idea is that you do your filtering on the left-hand side. You find the members that you want to apply this miscellaneous charge or credit to, move them to the right-hand side. And once you're done, you click the button at the bottom and we save, and then every one of those people will get a miscellaneous charge or credit. If it's a charge, they'll get an email that says you've got a miscellaneous charge. So we have some clubs, for example, that are using this, like a yacht club. If they have a restaurant or bar tab, at the end of the month, somebody will enter, these tabs in, and then, send emails to everybody saying, log in and, pay this pending charge. And of course, when somebody who has a pending charge logs in, and we log out and log back in again, it looks like you have at least one pending payment. And I can click here, and I do not have any pending payments. What happened to my pending payments? I guess I don't have any pending payments. If I did, you'd see that pop up. You click on it, it would take you to the payment page, and you could complete the payment. And by the way, we also have some clubs that don't like those pop-ups, so you can turn them off as well. That's really everything that I wanted to demo. So Alan and Sam, let's see what questions we have.
So the first question that a lot of people had were, what is the maximum number of hours that you can insert into the waitlist field?
That's a dang good question.
And one thing that a lot of people, I think, had a little confusion on that I tried to express was that the number of hours that you insert into that field is just how long that particular user has from the time that they're notified to actually register for the event. It's not how long the waitlist remains active for people to add themselves to it.
Yes, good point. It's the number of hours that the special link inside the email will work for that particular person. So if I go to event defaults and I'll scroll down to registrations, here is the new option that says waitlist hours. Let's see, we can put a 24 in there. Can we put a 48? I must be between 0 and 24. So there we go. 24 is the maximum.
And the next question, how do organizations determine which events are shared if they're sharing them across multiple levels? And where would they specify that, or is it automatic?
Okay, so let me go to that particular slide, which is right here. Again, this particular feature is not for those clubs that might have regions, districts, and chapters within a single website, because those clubs already have a single calendar. Now you can filter that calendar by chapter. Let's say your San Francisco chapter has a page within the website. You can actually create a link on that page that jumps to the calendar and filters the calendar to just show events for that chapter. This feature is not for that. This feature is specifically for those clubs and associations where you have a top-level organization, but the lower-level organizations are independent. We run a number of Rotary clubs that are part of a district. The Rotary clubs are independent. They have their own chapter and their own website. And if they create an event, they can check a box, and that event will appear on the top-level club's calendar. It won't appear on any of these calendars, only on the top-level club. Similarly, the top-level club can create an event which will be shared on the calendars for all of the chapters, because it's an event that really applies to the whole district, or let's say the whole state, if it's a statewide organization with local independent chapters within the state.
And next question, if someone refunds a user through PayPal, does ClubExpress recognize that as clearing that credit out?
The answer is no. If a payment was made originally through PayPal, I believe PayPal will give, if the club logs into its PayPal account, you'll see that you received some funds and you have the ability to do a refund. What you would have to do in that case, let's go to the control panel and the money tab and credits. So let's just pick this first credit here. I have some options up here: edit, refund, waive, or cancel. So if I click refund, this option marks the balance of the credit as having been refunded to the member. Note that we don't actually issue a refund. It must be handled by the club's treasurer. So the implication here is that you've refunded it some other way, whether that's by check or by using PayPal. PayPal does not give us an interface. It allows us, for those of you that enable the PayPal feature, it allows us to give you a way that members can pay or non-members can pay for an event or a membership through PayPal. But when that happens, we jump outside ClubExpress. We open up PayPal in the dialog. They log in, they specify the payment method. And the only thing that PayPal tells us is the payment was successful. And so we can now record that payment successfully. They don't give us an API or an interface to handle refunds.
All right, 2 final questions. And the second to last is, how long after an ACH clears the club account does it actually appear in the club's refund account?
Okay, so yeah, good question. ACH is, a part of the sort of the national banking system. They work within the US, and an ACH always involves 2 bank accounts, and it takes 2 business days. So what happens is the money is withdrawn from the bank account, from the first bank account on day 1, and it's deposited into the second bank account on day 2. Now, of course, somewhere in the middle there's some sort of bank that sort of has that money and is playing with the float, but I guess we don't have any control over that. So it always takes 2 business days. The withdrawal happens on the first day, the deposit happens on the second day. So what that means is that if you say, I want to refund $1,000, and you say it at 3 o'clock today, we will run an ACH at the end of the day. On Thursday, the money will be withdrawn from that bank account, and on Friday, it should arrive in our bank account. And as soon as we see that happens, then we can flag that refund request as having been approved, and then you can start issuing refunds. The other thing to keep in mind is that it's business days only, so it won't work over the weekend. And then one more thing, for a very large amount, we may actually wait 1 additional day to make sure that we actually have the money and it's not pulled back for some reason. Occasionally, ACHs get pulled back for reasons usually outside our control. And if that happens, we want to make sure that we're not on the hook. If it's $20, $25, it's not a big deal. But if it's $5,000, then, we need to make sure that the money is well and truly there. Typically 2 days, occasionally it may be 3 days.
And the last question, which is an interesting one, and I don't think it's currently possible, but it might be an interesting new feature, if it's possible to notify waitlisted users that there's an available spot via a text message.
Not currently possible, but definitely something that we'd like to add. In fact, I'm going to make a note of that. Many of you know that we added the text messaging feature last year as part of, I think, version 9.1. Late last year, November, something like that. And we now have the ability, just like you can send out blast emails to people, you can send out blast text messages to people. So certainly a potential enhancement we could add as we expand the usage of text messaging throughout the system is when somebody adds themselves to the waitlist, there'd be a radio button that says, do you want to be notified by email or by text message? Then the rest of the notification would be transparent. The admin says, notify this member, we'll send it out the most appropriate way. So it's an excellent idea, definitely an enhancement that we could do in the future.
There's another question that's pending of trying to get some more information. Someone wants to know, they want to confirm that the first login is defined as the first login after going live and includes all admins that have previously logged in while building the site.
The answer is no. It's the first login on a person-by-person basis. So if it's admins, they've already logged in the past, and so that the first login, flag will not be set for those people.
Right. So this is the first time really your members are trying to access the site.
Okay. If there are no more questions, again, I wanted to thank everybody for joining us today. Here's wishing that that you and your families and friends and professional colleagues stay safe. And hopefully, we can, again, within the bounds of proper safety, testing, widespread testing and contact tracing, that we can all get back to normal operations for our clubs and associations just as soon as possible. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you at the next webinar.